I'm Lee Richardson. I used to, in my younger days, play professional football. It's maybe surprising to look at me now and think that, but that was my one of my previous jobs.
I'm Fran Champwa. I operate with the players, with the staff and with other key stakeholders in the environment. And this is my first season working with elite female athletes in a football capacity. The easing of lockdown and the recent opening of gyms and other leisure centres is actually a real positive for individuals and for society as a whole. I think what we've seen over the last 12 to 15 months or so is that individuals have had to engage in exercise alone, and quite regularly that can be a little bit demotivating and it can be isolating. And what we see now is the opportunity to go to the gym, the opportunity to socialise, the opportunity to interact with others.
One of the striking elements about lockdown involves kind of three specific needs that have been identified around choice or autonomy, the ability to decide what we want to do, relatedness, as Fran was saying, being connected with other people, and actually competence or doing something well. And I think all those three aspects have affected most people.
That sense of belonging and exercising with other people is really maybe even more powerful now that we've come out of the lockdown. We're familiar with exercising on our own, but just to be able to interact with others, for me, I found that hugely beneficial.
Don't know whether I'll join a gym, but I'm certainly looking forward to being able to, get closer to people without having to wear a mask at some point. Stress is probably the most prevalent of all, mentally or challenging experiences that we face as human beings. And, things like gastric problems, heart palpitations, there's a number of sort of physical symptoms that occur as a consequence of stress. I suppose people it might be useful for people to recognise that, and therefore then the relationship with exercise and how that can protect people against that stress. So
for me, it's about taking perspective as well. I think we have to recognise that over the last 12 to 15 months, we haven't been able to engage perhaps in the same, whether it be strength training, aerobic training, whatever form of exercise that we usually participate in. And therefore we can't expect to go back into a gym environment and lift the same weight that we used to or engage in the same level of training that we used to. The transition back into the gym, the transition back into more rigorous exercise also has coincided with the transition back to work for a lot of people. And we know that the work environment can stimulate or cause stressors. And therefore, if you're going to the gym at the same time that you're in a more stressed working environment, what that might lead to is burnout. And for me, I'm absolutely not the Hulk. And so I can't go into the gym and expect to be lifting a certain level of weight or be engaging in a certain type of exercise. It's saying what's realistic and what's feasible. The majority of the population, or a high percentage of the population, have probably engaged in a different eating pattern and different eating behaviours simply through having access to food at different times of the day or just more frequently throughout the day. And for me then, as we transition back to work and we transition back into exercise or maybe even sport, it's also looking at the other end of the spectrum in that we have to fuel ourselves.
Again, like physical exercise, the benefits of a healthy diet are, well established. Like Fran said, our perspective should be that we should show a little bit of self-compassion, allow ourselves to get back on track for those of us who have maybe indulged a little bit too much. But getting back to a healthier way of living for all of us is, I think, probably high on most people's agenda. By you, Fran?
I use a phrase like, are you nourishing yourself? And I think that covers the whole of the spectrum of psychological well-being and more general physical and broader holistic well-being. We need to ensure that we're consuming the appropriate amount of calories through drink and through food to satisfy what we're now expending. So I think getting that balance is really, really important.
Because we're being at home so much, there's only so many hours in the day that you can, focus on certain different things, and at some point the fridge, beckons, or the cupboard beckons with the biscuits in, and it's just difficult when you're out and about and having a normal kind of working life. I suppose that's those temptations, if you like, or those opportunities to to indulge in that kind of behaviour are reduced. So
absolutely. I think there was one point, it's really embarrassing to say, where I was kind of having a cup of tea and custard creams for breakfast, and I think there's no way I would do that if I was sat at my desk. But at home it kind of feels okay, because who's going to judge you and who's going to see you? So you can develop those unhealthy habits, and it's just setting small but achievable goals to help shift the behaviour over time. I think there's real benefit of setting goals, both for elite athletes that myself and Lee will work with on a daily basis, helping them to adhere to performance goals, but also for the general population that engage in physical activity or exercise at a recreational level, because it gives us a purpose, it helps to build our confidence, it increases our motivation, and can enhance our self-awareness with regards to our general well-being, but also our exercise-related progression.
Every year, every January, seem to see people with new shorts on, new trainers on, really pushing themselves. But that behaviour tends to not be sustainable in the longer term, and it's probably more realistic and achievable to just do something every day. Just do a small amount each day and build up, if you like, a habit, because it's our habits really that are the thing that kind of, I suppose, makes us who we are.
Thanks so much for listening to both myself and Lee. We hope that we've provided you with some useful insights that you can take forward and employ in your own exercise, physical activity, or healthy lifestyle patterns.